In the coming weeks, we are also going to table 2 other reports which are ready. So I think in terms of scoring our committee, we deserve an A, Honorable Speaker. Moving forward, I assure this House that we are committed to upholding the highest standards of accountability and efficiency. Our mission is to ensure that public investment in governance and education yield the best possible outcomes for the citizens of our nation. Honorable Speaker, with those few remarks, I now beg to reply. Thank you.
Order, honorable members. Order. Take your seats. Honorable members, I now put the question, which is that this House adopts the report of the Public Investments Committee on Governance and Education on its consideration of the report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of state corporations, regulatory and governance agencies for the financial year 2018-2019, 2019-2020, and 2020-2021, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 20th June 2023. As members of that opinion say aye. Aye. Will those of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. We go back to order number 7.
Order number 7, questions and statements.
Now, at order number 7, honorable members, we have present in the House 2 cabinet secretaries, the Honorable Professor Kithure Kindiki and the Honorable Owalo. They are coming here to respond to your concerns. I think the issue was raised by Gitonga Mukunji, the member for Manyata, but raised by many of you on the operations and activities of a company called WorldCoin and the national security and recent cyber attack on key government systems. I would suggest, I have a copy of a statement here co-signed by the 2 ministers. They'll choose between them who will present the statement. Once they're done, I'll allow you members to make your interventions with the supplementary questions, starting with Mukunji, who raised the issue. And of course, priority normally goes to your leaders if they are interested. We will take this matter up to 3:45, latest 4. Then we bring in the Minister for Defense, who is waiting to answer your questions. So the 2 ministers, who of you will have the first bite? Honorable Owalo, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and honorable members, for granting us the opportunity to come and interface with you over this very pertinent issue in the interest of the Kenyan public. We are here pursuant to a query raised by the Member of Parliament for Manyata constituency, Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Gitonga Mukunji, who had sought for a statement from the Cabinet Secretaries, Interior and National Administration, and the Cabinet Secretary, Information, Communications and the Digital Economy, on the activities of the foreign data collection company, WorldCoin. Honorable Speaker, on the 3rd day of August 2023, the Honorable Leader of Majority Party issued a response. It was directed that both of us, in our capacity as Cabinet Secretaries, attend the plenary to respond to the issues raised by the honorable members. We stand by the statement that was earlier on issued by Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah, Mr. Speaker, but over and above that, we further state as follows. On the question pertaining to whether or not the safety of the data collected by WorldCoin is secure, Honorable Speaker, we are glad to let the House know that the government has implemented the following strategies to ensure safe data management practices by both foreign and local entities, Mr. Speaker. One, the government has established and operationalized the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner in conformity to the Data Protection Act 2019, Mr. Speaker. Further, the government has undertaken development and publication of the data protection regulations as at 31st December 2021. The government has also been conducting regular inspections and audits of entities registered as data controllers, Mr. Speaker, and data processors, and also undertaking regular investigations on breaches of the Data Protection Act 2019. In the same vein, Mr. Speaker, the government has undertaken development and implementation of personal data training curriculum to enhance levels of compliance. And finally, on a continuous basis, the government has undertaken public sensitization on data privacy and cyber hygiene. In addition to the above, Mr. Speaker, it is worth noting that the Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Information, Communication and the Digital Economy has constituted a committee to look into regulatory reforms informed by emerging technologies, including but not limited to digital currencies such as cryptocurrency, Mr. Speaker. This is informed by the fact that the operational environment is dynamic, and as factors in play in that operational environment change, it is also incumbent upon us as government, Mr. Speaker, to continuously look at ways and means of reviewing our policies, laws and regulations in line with changes and emerging issues in the operational environment. On the second question, pertaining to who authorized the biometric data collection by WorldCoin and whether or not the correct procedures were followed, Mr. Speaker, authorization of biometric data collection based on the Data Protection Act, Mr. Speaker, the government registered WorldCoin on 18th April 2023 as a data controller pursuant to that act and other attendant regulations. An entity processing personal data, Mr. Speaker, is required to identify itself with the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner by registering with the office, Mr. Speaker. And pursuant to the Data Protection Act 2019, an entity should therefore make an application for registration as a data controller where it determines the purpose and means of handling personal data. Conversely, an entity will make an application for registration as a data processor where it handles personal data on behalf of a data controller based on a contractual obligation with the data controller. An entity, further, Mr. Speaker, may register as a data controller and data processor at the same time. Informed by the above, Mr. Speaker, an application for a certificate of registration only signifies that the entity has complied with Section 18 and 19 of the Act for purposes of registration. But it does not in any manner endorse an entity's compliance with the Data Protection Act or its subsidiary regulations, nor is it a valid license for an organization to operate in Kenya or authorize the operations of an entity. What we are trying to say here, Mr. Speaker, is that there is a divergence between mere registration and operationalization in conformity to the law. Registration does not imply that a company operating in Kenya has been given a blanket authority to behave in the manner that it deems appropriate. So, in terms of operationalization, there are attendance rules and regulations and even guidelines, which upon registration, an entity is expected to conform to. The certificate simply signifies that an entity is known to the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner and that it processes personal data of persons located in Kenya. Further, it does not amount to certification of the processing activities of an entity or serve as an endorsement from the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner of an entity's compliance with other provisions of the Act or any other laws, including but not limited to the Constitution of Kenya 2010, which is our supreme law, Mr. Speaker. A registration certificate was therefore issued to WorldCoin following receipt of the requisite documentation pursuant to the registration regulations. On the third question, which seeks clarification as to whether or not safety guarantees have been put in place to ensure that the data will exclusively be used for the intended purpose and that citizens will suffer no loss, Mr. Speaker, the government on 30th May 2023 issued a directive to WorldCoin to cease the processing of irises and facial recognition data in the country. A further directive was issued on 2nd August 2023, Mr. Speaker, to WorldCoin to cease all operations in Kenya. In addition, the government has sought preservation orders from the courts to enable completion of the ongoing investigations by a multi-agency team so that, informed by the preservation orders, WorldCoin is compelled to preserve all the personal data of Kenyans for the duration of the investigations, Mr. Speaker. It is also important to note, Mr. Speaker, that prior to the aforestated, the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner established that the company had set up booths across the country to scan the irises of interested Kenyans in April 2022. And this was in anticipation of the launch of their cryptocurrency the week of 24th July 2023. Based on that, the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner commenced its assessment of the organization in May 2022. And in the course of this assessment, the office initially suspended the operations of WorldCoin for a period of 60 days in which the company was to submit a data protection impact assessment in accordance with the Data Protection Act to enable the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner ascertain the lawful basis and safeguards adopted by WorldCoin. Subsequently, Mr. Speaker, the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner conducted a spot check in May 2023 and again raised concerns with the processing activities of the entity and subsequently wrote to the entity in May 2023 directing immediate cessation of processing of sensitive personal data, namely irises, facial data of the data subjects. The office further directed that WorldCoin safely restricts the processing of any data that had already been processed and advised the office of the safeguard placed on the restricted data, Mr. Speaker. On the next question, as to whether or not the government has established the ultimate objective of this exercise and for what purpose the data was being collected, Mr. Speaker, this is subject to the ongoing investigations. The government is currently undertaking investigations to establish the intended objectives of the exercise by WorldCoin. And based on the results of that investigation, Mr. Speaker, we'll remain ready and available to come back and report to the House in that regard. On the next question, seeking to ascertain whether or not prior public participation to inform the public of the risks involved in the exercise was undertaken. Mr. Speaker, it is the responsibility of individual registered entities to undertake public sensitization as opposed to that of the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner subsequent to the registration. And in this regard, Mr. Speaker, we are not aware of any public participation carried out by WorldCoin. And consequently, the government has issued statements cautioning the public on the operations of WorldCoin in this regard, Mr. Speaker. On the next question pertaining to the source of the money that is being paid to participants who stand to benefit from the exercise by WorldCoin, Mr. Speaker, this again is one of the components of the terms of reference of the multi-agency team that is currently investigating the source of the money, Mr. Speaker. And we believe that the objective therefrom will be determined through this exercise. Mr. Speaker, the honorable member also sought comment from government on matters concerning cybersecurity attacks, and in this regard, we state as follows. It is indeed true, Mr. Speaker, that the e-citizen platform was temporarily affected by a threat that rendered it intermittently unavailable for 3 subsequent days, Mr. Speaker. That service interruption was caused by a distributed denial of services, commonly known as DDoS attack, where the intended hackers sent a flood of service requests, meaning more than the normal levels of request, through the IP address connections to the e-citizen servers with the intention of jamming the connection and making it non-responsive, Mr. Speaker. The government, through the Communications Authority of Kenya, Mr. Speaker, coordinates the Kenya National Computer Incident Response Team, which is a multi-agency cybersecurity monitoring center. And this center was instrumental in tracking the DDoS attack and providing relevant advisory support for purposes of intervention. What we are saying here, ladies and gentlemen, or honorable members, is that there was an attempted attack, but informed by the elaborate risk mitigation framework around the e-citizen platform that the government has deployed, put in place, that attack was unsuccessful. As we speak, Mr. Speaker, we are glad also to report that the e-citizen platform has now reverted back to optimal capacity utilization, and Kenyans are consuming the services as before or as envisaged. Mr. Speaker, the government also has a standing multi-agency committee that in a proactive manner addresses the cybersecurity threats and it mitigates cyber attacks risk, Mr. Speaker. And that committee entails membership from the Ministry of Information, Communications and the Digital Economy, the Ministry of Interior and National Administration, the Konza Technopolis, Kenya Airports Authority, Communications Authority of Kenya, Office of the Data Protection Commissioner, and the ICT Authority. What we are saying here, Mr. Speaker, is that we are aware that in the course of rapid digitalization, we were aware from the onset that we were likely to be exposed to cyber attacks. And rather than waiting to be reactive, we put in place an elaborate risk mitigation framework in a proactive manner with a view to mitigating any risks that could occur. In addition also, Mr. Speaker, the government has taken the following steps to mitigate the emerging cybersecurity challenges in a sustainable manner moving forward. 1, we have added an additional layer of technology security to the e-citizen platform. 2, we have redirected internet traffic to a different web application firewall with a view to filtering traffic before it hits the eCitizen platform. 3, we are undertaking continuous monitoring and visibility of the system so that we are able to scan all that is going on within the system, Mr. Speaker. We are also patching and updating the underlying operating system and the platform itself. Equally, Mr. Speaker, we are upgrading all applications running the services to current releases. And these are ideally the applications that are installed to run the single sign-on as well as the payment gateway, Mr. Speaker. We have also added the bandwidth capacity with a view to enhancing the capacity of the platform so that the system has got optimal levels of capacity to support requests from citizens, Mr. Speaker. And finally, on a continuous basis, based on best case practices elsewhere, we are entering into collaborations and partnerships with other jurisdictions as far as cybersecurity management is concerned, Mr. Speaker. As I conclude, Mr. Speaker, I wish to confirm that the government has put in place an elaborate framework to ensure that the eCitizen platform is stable and able to process and provide citizenry with the required services as the government also continues to onboard services in line with our digitalization agenda. The net effect of this statement, Mr. Speaker, is that we will continue pursuing our digitalization agenda, while on a continuous basis we are also ensuring that there is an elaborate risk mitigation framework to ascertain both data privacy and data security, Mr. Speaker. Moving forward, the government, in collaboration with other stakeholders, has proposed a review of our institutional framework in regard to cybersecurity so that we strengthen our cyberspace, including but not limited to the monitoring, evaluation, and reporting mechanisms, Mr. Speaker. We shall also continue to create cybersecurity awareness and capacity building at all levels of government and amongst the critical stakeholder segment of the Kenyan public. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. We submit.
Right. Mukunji.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
You will note several interventions, then you will be called upon to respond.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And I wish to say thank you to our CSs for that elaborate statement, capturing every question and statement we seeked as this House. And Honorable Speaker, while I was raising this question, I knew it is a wake-up call to our government and also us as a House to see how we can be prepared for the future, and because future, Honorable Speaker, is digital. Honorable Speaker, I've listened keenly, and I feel the departments concerned are well prepared to handle these issues. And Honorable Speaker, there is always a risk when it comes to digitization.
I've given you an opportunity to ask clarification.
Yes, Honorable Speaker.
Instead, you are justifying what you have done.
I want to say that while we are talking about the preparedness of any occurrence, I would like to know whether it's possible that there are countries interested in our data that are taking advantage of us, Honorable Speaker, considering this company was denied access of data from another country, but it is comfortably working here, and not only on the issue of WorldCoin, but also a lot of data from our people was picked through their other company called ChatGPT. And the other question is, I saw the site has been pulled down, the WorldCoin site. I would like to know whether we can have the CS giving us more light on why the site shut down, and at the point of shutting down, what is it that they had, and was it stored in this country? Was it stored in the cloud servers, or have they gone ahead and checked on what is on their servers? The other question, Honourable Speaker, is the issue of the multi-agent preparation, multi-agent that the CS said he has prepared in terms of looking at the issues of attacks on cybersecurity. I would like to know the composition of it, or is a department thing, or does it involve foreigners, or it is locals? Because, Honourable Speaker, the key thing here is we are going a place where we can have warfare that involves our data and our programs that government is doing digitally. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Gitonga Morugara.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So, Speaker, on this particular day, we woke up to long queues on the roads. The roads were blocked, pathways were blocked, and there was brisk business at KICC. The question I have for the Cabinet Secretary is, was there a lapse in intelligence service? Because what these people were doing must have been advertised. That is how they got Kenyans to go and get the service. Now we are told there are investigations that are being done as regards what exactly they were doing. Was there a lapse in our intelligence service so that we allowed somebody to do what possibly was illegal when actually we ought to have known and we ought to have stopped them from doing it? Thank you.
Thank you. And Minister, you also, from your statement, members raised serious questions last week. You say that the Data Protection Commissioner directed this company to cease operating in May. And on 2nd August, they were attracting phenomenal queues at KICC. Was there a lapse somewhere? Irene Mayaka?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. My question goes to the CS, Eliud Owalo. And I just want to ask, considering
the interests are many, so you ask one.
Yes, it's just one question. Considering the fact that the rest of the world is revolutionary from the 4th industrial estate to the 5th industrial revolution, and we are still backtracking in the country, what measures have you put in place to ensure that we are striking a balance between innovation in technology and just ensuring there's public safety in matters cryptocurrency and WorldCoin? And in relation to the fact that there's already sound alarm out there on different tech magazines on the issues and the risks associated with WorldCoin. So how are you going to balance the two? Thank you.
Robert Mbui.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. On this matter of WorldCoin, I want to thank the ministers for coming up with quick answers, because this time is of the essence, because we must avoid condemning any investor without completing our investigations. Mr. Speaker, on the question of public participation, the CS has said that it is not the responsibility of the government agent to be able to carry out public participation, that it was actually a responsibility of the investor. And Mr. Speaker, I want to say that is outrightly wrong, because the Article 10 of the Constitution, which deals with matters public, indicates that one of the values and principles is public participation. So it is the responsibility of the government to have carried out public participation, to understand what this institution was coming to do, so that they can be able to protect Kenyans in case there is anything that is out of the ordinary. But Mr. Speaker, my two questions, quick ones, is that sometime last year, I think there was a rejection in an application for licensing. And now later on this year, sometime in May, there was a license. What changed, between last year and now, so that they could allow the change? And then noting that technology changes, and technology is very volatile and very fluid. Is it possible that this data has already left the boundaries of this country and that we are addressing matters that are already, overtaken by time? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mboko Milemba.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and thank you, the Honorable Ministers. On the date of this happening, and let me thank the Minister for Interior for having stopped. But then it looked like a Pearl Harbor to you, because you didn't seem to have known that we would wake up and would have all those queues, not only at KICs, but everywhere. So how safe are Kenyans if you'll have those stopgap measures of such a happening of such a high magnitude only for you to come in and stop? But above all, the two of you as ministers who have been called here as a duo is that you seem to disagree on what exactly should be done on the matter concerning WorldCoin. Tell us, why did that come up? Thank you.
I'll give to the Honorable Kaluma, then ministers, you respond to that, then we'll do another round.
I thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, Section 974 of the Companies Act require all foreign companies to be registered before they can do business in the country. And there is very heavy punishment because it makes it a criminal offense for such company, any foreign company, to so act before registration. So the question, Honorable Speaker, is, was this particular company registered as a foreign company with the Registrar of Companies? And if so, what actions has the relevant ministry taken against the officers of the company, particularly the local ones, since this event?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Minister, before you respond, allow me to acknowledge the following schools quickly in our galleries. Kionek Primary School from Kinangop, Nyandarua. Mini School and Daycare from Kisumu Central, Kisumu. Luak Girls Boarding and Primary School from Rarieda, Siaya. Thanantu Primary School from Tarakaniti. Dries Farm Secondary School from Ainapkoi, Wasingishu. Kariani Secondary School from Maragua, Muranga. Kimende Primary School from Lari, Kiambu. And Sasumua Primary School from Kinangop, Nyandarua. On my behalf and on behalf of all members of the House, we welcome the schools to Parliament. Minister.
Honorable Speaker, honorable members, I would like to respond to some of the clarifications that have been sought by members in the following manner. First, we agree with the member who has said that as a country, we must balance the need for us to move with the rest of the world where it is going in terms of technology and all innovations in the technology space, but balance that with our national interest and our national security. And that discussion, that debate is a national debate for all of us, all arms of government, including Parliament, so that we strike the right balance, so that we don't roll back from where we need to go into the future, but on the other hand, we don't endanger our national security. So I concur with those sentiments. Number two, Honorable Speaker, on the question whether the Business Registration Services Department or the Registrar of Business Names had registered this company, the answer is in the negative. However, I would like to bring to the attention of the House, Honorable Speaker, that this entity appear to have carried its operations through a Kenyan agency. In other words, the company itself, although the company had been registered as a controller of data, the actual operations of processing data and harvesting data seems to have been coordinated through an agency, a properly registered business owned and managed by Kenyans. And I think that clarification would be important. Nevertheless, the fact that officials of WorldCoin visited Kenya, and so far we have established that they carried out certain activities around supervising what was going on, definitely implies liability on their part, whether or not the entity was involved directly or not. Number 3, Honorable Speaker, it has been asked by one of the distinguished members of this House whether the intelligence knew, and I think 2 members, the member for Tharaka and the member for Emuhaya, they raised the question of intelligence. I would like to say again, just like the issue of balancing innovation and security, ordinarily security agencies do not interfere with businesses and operations and everyday activities unless there is reason to. When this company began its operations that attracted crowds, I think it was on a Saturday, reports were made, and the following day on Sunday, very early when we were doing our morning briefs from across the country, it was brought to the attention of the Cabinet Secretary for Interior that on the previous Saturday there were these activities in 2 or 3 locations in Kenya. And we directed immediately that the activities associated with these people and this entity be put on the radar. They continued on Sunday, and a report again was made in the early morning briefs of Monday. And by then, it was in our determination by that time, we had formed the opinion that the activities of this company could not continue. And that's why when they did the 3rd activity at KICC, we did not even allow them to go. And again, in answer to the concern raised by the member for Tharaka, it was not necessary to stop people from assembling, but it was necessary for us to stop people from committing crime. And we stopped and asked and dispersed that congregation on that day, and the rest is history. The following day, again, based on the daily reports, we were very clear that these people could not be allowed to continue what they are doing. In other words, Honorable Speaker, from where I sit as the Interior Minister of the country, I'm satisfied that we were cautious enough without disrupting business and people's activities, and we acted timely and timeously in our view. Lastly, so that the other issues can be responded to by my colleague, the CS for ICT, on the issue as to whether perhaps there's anything else we could have done. I think there was a general feeling that perhaps the government could have acted faster. I would like to say that generally we've made very good progress, and we were able to freeze at the point where the red flag was raised. We have frozen the movement of any person, whether Kenyan or foreign, associated with that activity. And we are on our radar, all the people associated with this enterprise, with this entity, even those who are abroad, and we are using our legal instruments on mutual legal assistance to ensure that those people, as is likely to be the case, will be held accountable We believe, without preempting the investigations where we are, Mr. Speaker, I would like to inform the House and the country that we believe that crimes have been committed. Crimes against the Data Protection Acts, crimes against privacy of the people of Kenya, crimes within the Penal Code, and we will hold those who have committed those crimes accountable, whether they are Kenyans or not. So we have frozen and we have on our radar all the people of interest. Some of them, especially the local ones, have recorded statements. We'll also be requesting the surrender of those who are outside our territory so that they can also record statements. And finally, that we believe that what happened on the e-Citizens platform was an attempt to hack, was not really hacking, but there was a serious attempt to hack into the system. We have taken serious upscaling of the system under the NC4 arrangement, which brings together the Interior Ministry as the coordinating agency, Department of Defense, ICT, and NIS. And I want to assure the people of Kenya, we should not fear technology, but we should be very alert so that technology does not bring our national interest into disarray. So, Honorable Speaker, I think there is no cause of alarm on both issues, the WorldCoin issue, the issue of the attempted hacking into our e-Citizen platform. We are alert and we remain amenable to the input of Parliament so that we can improve our systems and serve our country better. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Eliud Owalo, you have something to add?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, just a few more pertinent issues to clarify to honorable members. Honorable Omboko Milemba alluded to a possible difference in the stance taken by myself and my colleague from the Ministry of Interior. I want to state that at no point in the course of this episode has there been a discordance between the position I took and that of the CS responsible for the functional mandate of Interior and Security. What I did state one morning during a TV interview was that at the point when WorldCoin was being registered, they had met the threshold, the prerequisites necessary for purposes of registration. There's a difference between the bare minimum requirements that you need to possess for purposes of registration and conformity to the attendant rules, regulations, and operational guidelines. Mr. Speaker, mere registration is not a blanket certificate for non-conformity to the operational rules and guidelines. And this is why, on a continuous basis, upon registration, there are mechanisms through which government monitors the conformity or otherwise to the attendant rules and regulations. But I did also state that morning that there were investigations going on. In the course of operationalization, certain issues had emerged. And as government, we were looking at issues pertaining to conformity to the set rules and guidelines. There were issues pertaining to security. There were also issues pertaining to policy, laws, and regulations, which we were attending to as government. And in the course of that very day, government was going to take action. And that is exactly what my colleague, CS Professor Kithure Kindiki, did in conformity to what I had stated earlier on. Two, Mr. Speaker, was the issue of whether or not foreigners could be interested in our data. Granted, data is the new oil, and we cannot block our eyes from the possible interest in our data by foreign entities. But I believe that as we speak, that is subject to the ongoing investigations, and at the tail end of that exercise, we will be able to ascertain the authenticity or otherwise of those fears pertaining to foreign interest in our data. And once that is done, we will make that information available to both Parliament and the larger Kenyan public, Mr. Speaker. As we speak, it is subject to the ongoing investigations. I believe those are the two other issues that, on the issue of innovation and security. Mr. Speaker, innovation is constant in the world of today because we are operating in a dynamic operational environment where technology is the in thing, technology is in the horizon. Kenya as a country cannot be an exception. What we need to do is to ensure that as we innovate, as we embrace technology, we are also simultaneously ensuring that we don't expose the country unwarrantedly to possible cyber attacks. And this is why we are putting in place an elaborate mechanism, risk mitigation framework, to ensure that as we digitalize our records and digitalize our services, we are not exposing ourselves to cyber attacks, but conversely, we are putting in place an elaborate risk mitigation framework. The issue of the composition of the multi-agency team, that team entails membership from various facets of the Kenyan government, Mr.
That
Speaker.
has been answered by Kindiki.
Thank you.
Dido Raso.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I wish to pose to the CSs. There are almost believed to be over 4 million Kenyans who are trading in Bitcoins. And what happened recently, where the iris was being scanned, actually it is believed to be the most intrusive data gathering. And it also borders on what is called collection of data for artificial intelligence. So for that reason, if we are saying that by the next 10 years, everything in Kenya will be on e-government, e-this, e-that. So for me as a legislator, the question I wish to pose to you is how much are we ahead in terms of saying, yes, there must be a red line that Kenyans should be not asked for this or that, because the banks can go for this, or any entity. You can imagine the collection of this data was done because Kenyans were being paid $49. And I think that is really absurd. So for that reason, the Minister for ICT, tell us on the issue of artificial intelligence and that Kenyans are not being used as some sort of a data collection entity for a specific reason, much beyond business. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Give Mama Zamzam.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika, na swali langu linaenda kwa mawaziri wote wawili. Ilianza kwanza na M-Pesa, watu wakawa wanaingia wanaibia wananchi pesa. Ikaingia kuna mmoja alijilipa pesa kama mbunge wa bunge hili na ilikuwa kumbe ni story ya Flela Ulela. Mwisho mmenyamaza mpaka imefika kuwa taifa la Kenya tunapoteza takwimu zetu, tunapata watu wameingia kwenye system na Kenya inakuwa kabisa iko blackout. Nataka nimuulize waziri wa usalama. Umesema vile ulivyofanya usalama katika mambo ya maandamano ukawa successful. Mimi nataka nikuulize katika data ya Kenya ambayo ni muhimu, manake hata Shakahola pia ilikupata off guard na hii pia imekupata off guard. Unaweza kuambia nini wa Kenya mwaka mzima ambao umemaliza kuwa usalama wa Kenya uko thabiti katika mikono yako? Asante sana.
The member for Kimilili. Give him a functioning mic.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a very simple question. By the time that this company was applying registration, it was evident that other governments were cracking them down. Why did the government of Kenya fail to carry out due diligence before they allowed this company to operate in Kenya. This is very important, Honorable Speaker, because it will therefore mean that tomorrow or the day after, somebody can come here, register a company, even harvest kidneys for Kenyans and leave this country. The second question, Honorable Speaker, is that the two ministers have used the word investigations more than 5 times. I want them to assure this House that the government of Kenya is going to invest in crime prevention so that we don't behave as if we are reactionary to carry out investigations. Maybe these people who came here, the WorldCoin, they have already gotten what they wanted. They have shut down their system and they have left. So the ministers should assure Kenyans that they are going to invest heavily in crime prevention so that we don't hear these things about investigations are going on. The crime has been committed already. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Makale Mulu.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I will ask only 2 questions.
Ask one.
Okay, let me say this, Honorable Speaker.
Yes.
The first question, Honorable Speaker, I'm just wondering, and I'm a person who has a finance background, the issue of cryptocurrency and the issue of the eyes, where is the connection? The second question, Honorable Speaker, and allow me to ask this, it's important, Honorable Speaker. The second question, Honorable Speaker, this country, would I be in order to say there is a disconnect between intelligence collection and what the security arms are doing? Because I see us being reactive instead of being proactive. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. Member next to Kamket. Member for Kajiado North, yes. Give him the mic.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to ask the CSS present, and specifically the CS Kindiki. Under our laws, bribery is a crime. The people who are the WorldCoin people, they were paying a token for them to get something from you. And
7,000 cannot be a token. That's a lot of money.
Yes, no, my apologies, Mr. Speaker. They were paying 7,000. That means that is bribery, because they are giving you something for them to get something from you. Out of the charges that you have said, there are crimes that have been committed. I would want you to come out clear that you will charge somebody for bribery, because bribery is against the laws of the Republic of Kenya. Number 2, on the information that they picked from people, this House, when we asked this question, we asked ourselves, where did they take it? Where is that information? The statement, Mr. Speaker, did not bring out the issue of where is the information that they had already picked from people, because even as we talk of the future, what they did on that particular day on the specific individuals. And because I have a lot of confidence with the Honorable Kindiki, I want you to answer me that question, because I know you're very capable, unlike what the Honorable Zamzam wants to intend, that you do not know how to do things. I know you are capable, competent, and the Honorable Kindiki is a straight shooting professor. Thank you very much.
Honorable Mawade. Is that Mawade next to, or is it Basil?
Mawade.
Mawade, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to ask the question to the CS Interior and also the ICT CS. This was a very huge lapse on our security, because if we can allow some strangers to come in and harvest the identification biometrics of Kenyans, what will they be able to do next? The The other question is, just a few days earlier, we had seen our systems, our IT systems being hacked. Yes, we may deny, we can use all good English, but our IT system were interrupted by strangers. What measures are we taking to ensure, one, that that doesn't happen again? Two, as far as the Interior CS is concerned, what measures are we taking again as to ensure that the harvesting of people's biodata will not happen again? Also, where is this information being?
Yes, what's the out of order, Ruku?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Is the member in order to ask a question which already has been answered clearly by the two ministers, unless the member was not in this house or he was asleep when that question is asking, when it was being addressed by the two ministers in a very appropriate manner. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Order. A member has a right to ask order. Order, Mawade. A member has a right to ask a question if he is not satisfied with the previous answer. Indicate.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Order. Yes, Mawade.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Hold on.
There's no way. There is no way that will allow somebody to go. No, Mr. Speaker, he must withdraw. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
It is very wrong. Let me start off.
I've already defended.
Yes, allow me. Just allow me, Mr. Speaker. It is very wrong for the mono to say something that is not derogatory about the other member. He must withdraw. He must withdraw. Otherwise, we will engage. We are polite, but we are not afraid. We will engage. That's not the right way to go about it. He must withdraw.
Honorable Mawade. Order. Rindikiri. The last one. Ministers, get ready.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to ask the two cabinet secretaries. This Data Protection Commission, under which ministry does the Data Protection Unit lie? And two, the Data Protection Unit has been carrying out investigations on the activities of the matter at heart. Mr. Speaker, I would like to ask my question through you. Mr. Speaker, my question is to the two ministers. Under which ministry does the Data Protection Unit belong to? Mr. Speaker, we know this Data Protection Unit in the former government was a unit that was being used for other purposes. Mr. Speaker, you know that this department was aware of the activities of this company at hand a few months ago. And up to now, we are being told this unit is still carrying out investigations. How confident can we be on the operations and the management of this unit? Because we haven't gotten a clear answer from them. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Speaker, there is one question that I asked that have not been answered. And this question is very important because it touches on the matter and the people who are expecting money from this site. Honorable Speaker, the site, the WorldCoin site, right now has been pulled down. And this site, Honorable Speaker, is the one that is holding the 7,000 that these people who scanned their irises are expecting that money. Honorable Speaker, I'm asking a simple question. The shutting down of this site, does it relate in any way to the investigation that is ongoing? Or, Honorable Speaker, these people have taken what they wanted and they have ran away? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Ministers.
Honorable Speaker.
Order, Honorable Mawade. Why is your hand up in the air all the time?
Honorable Speaker, in response to the question whether the country is safe, Mr. Speaker, I want to assure the House and the country that Kenya is safe. I also want to add that as we go towards a technological world, we must, as a nation, be alive to the fact that the risks that exist in the physical space are the same risks that exist in the digital space. So one of the reasons why perhaps this particular threat that we experienced looks a bit unique is because this is a new space. And Mr. Speaker, I want to prepare the country that even as we go towards embracing technology as we must be alive to the fact that there are risks in the digital space of an equal nature, if not greater, than the risks in the physical space. Honorable Speaker, another concern or supplementary issue which has been raised is the need for us to clarify whether we are prepared to deal with the risks in the digital space in the same manner as we have dealt with other threats to our national security. Mr. Speaker, sir, I confirm in the affirmative that the government will deal with all threats to our national security wherever they arise from, whether from the physical space, the digital space, from the technology space, or any space whatsoever. And therefore, this is a serious threat just like terrorism. It's a serious threat just like banditry. It's a serious threat just like trade in narcotic drugs and psychotropic substances. It is a threat just like those who want to intimidate us to use politics to commit crime. We will be firm with all threats to our national security wherever they arise. Thirdly, Honorable Speaker, a question has been asked on the money that was promised to the people of Kenya in exchange for their data. Honorable Speaker, I would not like to speak a lot on this area because as I have said, we have made great steps in the investigations, and I don't want to preempt investigations. But allow me, Honorable Speaker, to say that from us as security managers, as the Ministry of Interior, what raised the red flag was the monetary inducement. For us, that is one of the earliest indications. And the moment it became apparent that that exercise that started, as I said, it was done for 2 days, and on the third day, we were clear that crimes are being committed from where we sit. So that inducement for us is an area of concern. The other red flag, other than the area of inducement, is that we suspect again that our understanding of the data protection law is that the processors of data must obtain consent. we are of the opinion that if at all any consent was sought, which is doubtful, that consent was not informed consent. And that's why we believe we will nail down people, we'll pin down people. It's just a matter of time. Honorable Speaker, a question has been asked on whether we are investing in crime prevention, and I want to answer in the affirmative. Because going forward, we are increasingly investing and concentrating on preventing crime before it happens, or arresting crime in the earliest opportunity, without again, and I think this is an important clarification, Honorable Speaker, without again overly interfering with the ordinary activities that are allowed under the law. So by the time we come in, we must have reasonable grounds to suspect that crimes are being committed. Honorable Speaker, the other issue has been raised is on why we took a bit of time and only acted after things started happening. I would like to say the activities of this entity are not just the subject matter of a security investigation in Kenya alone. There are many other countries around the world, a few countries, and many of them are first world countries who are asking the same questions that we're asking today, including 2 countries in Europe, 1 country in Asia. So I don't think it is fair to say that perhaps the Kenyan authorities have not been prudent or alert enough, because I know the same issues have been raised in the United Kingdom, in France, in India, in Germany, and a few other countries. Honorable Speaker, we are certain that we will bring accountability, and I think there is no cause of alarm. In terms of the data which have been harvested so far, Honorable Speaker, we have preservation orders that data should not be processed. We have a court order, but we are informed by the experts that even if such data is already stored in the cloud, we are informed that it is still retrievable. And therefore, again, there is no cause of alarm, because we already know our people, the numbers of our people that had already gone through this process. And then finally, Honorable Speaker, I would like to just assure the people of Kenya that I know we are a very political country, which is a good thing, because democracy is supposed to bring the kind of vibrancy that we see in our space here as a country. But I want to plead with the representatives of the people, the honorable members, that on matters national security, we try and remove our politics and our democratic engagement from that space. That way, we'll be able to preserve the country for ourselves and our children. Thank you.
Speaker, I'm concerned that the cabinet secretaries are not treating this matter with the seriousness it deserves. Instead of getting responses as representatives of the people, we are getting lectures on things we know and the basis upon which we raised this issue with you. Honorable Speaker, I asked a simple question: whether this company as a foreign company is registered. And the Cabinet Secretary for Interior is saying it appears to be registered. The Cabinet Secretary in charge of ICT is saying it is registered, they are dealing with operational issues. Could we know, because there is a legal consequence to a foreign company doing business in the country if they are not registered, in which case, Honorable Speaker, even before we check what they are doing with the data mined, the foreign agents of the company should be in court, and the fine is prescribed in Section 974. not lectures on democracy, what people should do.
Honorable Kaluma, I thought the minister had earlier said that the WorldCoin group are not registered in Kenya, but they have local collaborators. Isn't that what you said? So your pursuit should be, who are the local collaborators? Are they going to be charged with conspiracy to commit crimes and all those other chains of criminal activities? And I think that is up to the minister to answer. Owalo, can we hear from the second minister before, unless it's a serious point of order? Yes, Honorable.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just arise on a point of order because, you know, the House has allowed the CSS to come and answer matters of concern to Kenyans. But the CS of Interior has just told us that he does not want issues that are political. Now, when members of this House ask questions, they're obviously political because we are representatives of the people. And I think that's what the Honorable Kaluma has alluded to. Instead of giving us a lecture, kindly just respond to our questions because there is no politics other than our representation of the people. Mr. Speaker, kindly guide the minister.
Zamzam, are you also on a point of order?
Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi swali langu lilikuwa tu dhahiri kuwa Kenya tuko katika hali tata ikiwa anga zetu zitakuwa zimeingiliwa. Na mheshimiwa pale alinikosoa akaweka kama ambayo namdhulumu yule minister, ni yale aliyosema rais wa taifa hili kuwa hawa ministers kuna vitu vingi hawavielewi. Mimi nimeuliza hii security ya nchi yetu iko sawa katika mikono yake kwa vile tumeingiliwa sana? Yeye amekuja anazungumza mambo ya siasa. Hapa si siasa kwa sababu hata mimi akaunti yangu pia ilikuwa hacked. Ndio maana nauliza, si masala ya siasa.
Owalo, we can't have endless chains of points of order.
Mr. Speaker, I think we had already indicated earlier, and I want to repeat, that WorldCoin as an entity is not a legally registered company in Kenya. Through the registrar, the Business Registration Service. But it is registered as a data collector. In terms of operationalization, WorldCoin has been undertaking its activities through a different entity, which is registered in Kenya. And it's on the basis of this.
Owalo, yeah. The issue that Kaluma was asking is, if this entity is not registered,
yes,
why did you allow an entity that has no legal status to start collecting data from Kenyans? I think that is the big question.
The issue here, Mr. Speaker, we have got many...
And hand in hand with that, so that we save time, because your colleague is waiting behind there, you should also answer Makali Mulus. And I, as the Speaker of this House, went and also did some research on Bitcoins. And there's nowhere in the world I found that to trade in cryptocurrency, you have to have your iris mined by any company. So that is also something that should assure Kenyans and members of parliament.
Mr. Speaker, WorldCoin was registered in Kenya as a data collector, not courtesy of the Business Registration Service. The prerequisites for purposes of registration as a data collector does not include or does not entail being registered as a company operating in Kenya. We are dealing with the digital space in this instance, Mr. Speaker. And there's many other companies operating in Kenya which are not legally registered by the Business Registration Service. The other issue was on the Office of the Data Commissioner, Mr. Speaker. The Office of the Data Protection Commissioner, for purposes...
Naomi Wako, what is your point of order?
Thank you.
All the minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to know why they have allowed them to collect our data. Simple. Yeah.
Minister, that is the bottom line, Minister.
Can we be a bit patient so that I do justice to this issue?
Okay.
The company that has been
give the
collecting
minister
data.
an opportunity to answer. You have asked him questions, let him answer.
The company that has been collecting the data in Kenya is not WorldCoin. It is a surrogate of WorldCoin, Mr. Speaker. And these people have been apprehended by the security agencies. Two, the Office of the Data Commissioner, Mr. Speaker, operates under policy guidance from the Ministry of Information, Communication, and the Digital Economy.
Mary Kaitani, what is your point of order?
Mr. Speaker, is it in order for the Cabinet Secretary for ICT to say that they can actually allow companies to operate in this country without any registration? Because that is, we've had his statement, and in his statement he's actually purporting that people can actually come into this country and operate without any registration. Can he tell us, is it in order for a company to come and operate in this country without proper registrations and proper identification before operations begin?
Minister, go on. Honorable members, let him finish answering. If I find it necessary to do another round, I will. Honorable Eliud Owalo, are you done?
Yes,
you are consulting.
Yeah, Honorable Speaker, we were consulting because, to the best of my mind, I am not sure that that obligation is in the current Data Protection Act, and for me, subject to confirmation, I just asked our PSC for ICT to confirm if that obligation is in the Data Protection Act in terms of procedure for registration. Mr. Speaker, protect me, I finish the answer, and then the member can, yeah. So, Mr. Speaker.
Let him finish. Let him finish order.
He wanted to answer according to the government, not according to his mind. According to the government.
Go on, Kindiki.
Mr. Speaker, to the best of my mind, the Data Protection Act does not obligate the registration of data processors to be companies registered under the law of Kenya. And I've said with a caveat, I could be wrong. If it does, then definitely that is an oversight. If it does not, then it means we must amend the law going forward in consonance with the sentiments by the members to make sure that that becomes an accountability, an extra accountability layer for the future.
Yes, honorable members, I want to end here. Order. Yes, Kakai Bisau, what is your point of order? Minister, go hold your horses. I've given the floor to Bisau.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Sitting here and listening at the way the two ministers are answering these questions, first of all, we have to remember that on that particular day, our country was under attack. And in fact, we thank you for coming together because now you give an impression that at least you're coordinating issues. But before that, we thought that you're completely not coordinating issues. What I want to say, Mr. Speaker, the CS Internal Security talked about it happened on the first day, they investigated on the second day, on the third day. That shows a lot of laxity. We cannot have such an issue where we are under attack. It takes 3 days and we are saying we investigated. I know technology is moving at a very fast pace. And this is not the first or the last time. We're going to have most of these things happening. So what I would like the ministers to tell us, what are the mitigation measures you are putting in place so that when we have another technology attack, we are able to ensure that Kenyans are not suffering. And remember, those that were affected mostly were the people under the pyramid, because there was some token given to them. So tell us what you're going to put in place to mitigate this. And lastly, we would like the perpetrators to be tabled and made it public. Thank you.
Kangoko Bowen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, the confusion we saw between the two cabinet secretaries, Mr. Speaker, is again has been brought to this House. Mr. Speaker, I would suggest it this way, Honorable Speaker. In fact, the more they explain to us or they answer these questions, the more we are confused. Mr. Speaker, I would suggest if you give them more time, they go and reconcile their thoughts. At the same time, they look at the facts and then bring a correct information to this House, Mr. Speaker. Because from the start of this session, Mr. Speaker, the cabinet secretaries, they have been taking us round. At one point, they are saying the companies are not registered. And at another point, they are saying they are registered, but only for data collections. Mr. Speaker, we are not going to get correct answers from the cabinet secretaries now. I would ask that, Mr. Speaker, you direct that they go back and they bring us a correct and satisfactory answers.
Order, honorable members, for avoidance of doubt, honorable ministers, the Companies Act, Section 974, says as follows. A foreign company shall not carry on business in Kenya unless on business in Kenya, unless, it's repeated, it is registered under this part or it has applied to be so registered and the application is pending. So what WorldCoin is doing is illegal, even under the Companies Act, but I agree with Kangoko Bowen that ministers, you can see and feel, you can stop disparaging our ministers. You can see and feel the representatives of the people from where they sit. And I think this was captured by Makali Mulu. What has the mining of Kenyans' iris got to do with cryptocurrency? I think that is the issue. And I agree with you, Professor Kindiki, that criminal acts have been committed and that you are investigating. I'll give you another week and come back and give more cogent answers, because like the young MP from John Paul, you are from Igembe, has been agitatingly coming to whisper to me that KICC is a government property. Who licensed these people to have long queues of Kenyans on government premises? Those are some of the questions MPs were asking. And I would want to encourage you as our ministers, whose responsibility is to account to the people of Kenya through their representatives in this House, to get out to the bottom of this matter. And I also encourage you, ministers, that your multi-agency investigation team seem to include the Data Protection Commission, which actually gave authority to these people to do what they were doing. So they cannot possibly investigate themselves. And therefore, I would encourage you that for purposes of impartiality and openness, you may have to exclude them from your multi-agency team, because you might find them culpable as well. I want us to end here so that we get in the Minister for Defense. Ministers, you are released to go. You will come back next Wednesday. And the next time you come, I encourage you, because harmonize your thinking so that when you come, we have at least one of you speaking on behalf of both of you. Professor Kindiki?
Sorry, Speaker, to request to speak after you've already given your directive. I wanted to suggest as follows.
Yes.
This matter is very complex.
Yes.
As you have already noted about the KICC facility and so on, it involves so many ministries, departments, agencies.
Yes.
This is my fear, Honorable Speaker, that unless maybe you can accommodate all the agencies here, I would have suggested, because the members have raised very valid issues, and I agree with them, this is a very serious national issue. If there is a way to package there is the security aspect, there is the ICT aspect, there is the business registration aspect, there is so many other things. And perhaps maybe that way we can help the members so that we don't bore you and we don't come here and because these answers are all over the place, and it's not enough for one ministry or even the two ministries to respond conclusively, including our agencies. I wanted to plead, Speaker, you consider whether there is another way in which we can provide the same information to the House, maybe separately, yes, maybe at departmental committees and so forth. And finally, from where we sit, we are willing to be of service to the House as many times as possible, but in a more organized way so that we also don't waste Parliament's time with endless repetition of the same subject.
I get your point, Minister. What I'll do, I have enough people to segregate the issues, and I'll give you advice through formal communication. As you leave now, the direction is that you come on Wednesday, but in between, once we are able to segregate the issues to see which ones are security, which ones are ICT, they look intertwined now, and which ones are other departments, we'll be able to guide you accordingly. You have a valid concern. Colin, yes, Shakil, I want to close this.
It was very important, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg your indulgence. The issue of the information that has already been mined, I wanted to ask if the Minister for IT and Internal Security, both of them, can make applications wherever that information has gone, because they have a way to find what information was routed to where, to make an application at the destination of that information for it to be held to our order. I don't know. The Minister
already said that they have gone to court. They have orders to preserve the data already mined.
That is
and that even the data stored in the clouds is retrievable.
But that's a court in Kenya, sir. What we will hear later on is the United Kingdom court or the American court. No application was served upon them, and they as such could not retain that information. So I was urging that since we can find out, even our telephone calls, we can know where it's going. The information that has been transmitted already should be now, we identify where it is and put an application in the court of that country.
Ministers have heard you. Ministers,
thank you, sir.
If the agencies will extend extra territorial investigations, so be it. I'm sure you have got collaborative processes with other agencies elsewhere. Can you usher in the Minister for Defense? The Minister for Security comes in, I acknowledge the following schools in the public and speakers gallery: Elangata Enterit Primary School from Narok, South Narok. All Saints Kamoyo Preparatory School from Mosop, Nandi. Kapchoge Primary School from Marakwet East, Elgeyo Marakwet. Sitotwo Primary School from Keio South, Elgeyo Marakwet. Kapkoiga Girls High School from Keses, Uasin Gishu. On my behalf and on your behalf, I welcome the schools to the House of Parliament. Honorable members, the Minister for Defense is now in the House.